As I come up here, all of us, I'm sure, feel the same way I do. It's been a spectacular number of exciting people and great ideas that you've heard about. And what I thought I would do during my short time is I'm going to start by saying I feel very fortunate that I am currently and have been involved with 6 of the people that have come up here and talked over the last couple of days. What I thought I'd do is take you back and show you how that all started, some things I've learned from that, and a little bit taking you forward in terms of maybe what my next 30-year plan is in looking at that. So this is in essence my story. The theme that I'm looking at for myself is to champion innovators. The context of this, and you'll see as I go through today that I borrow a lot. I borrow a lot because I don't write well, and every once in a while you see things that someone has written that is spectacular, and why not borrow it? Because it really makes that point well. And this is Frank Gehry, and it's, you only live in this history. And that's a practice that I am trying to live these days. And my id is simple. I want to be 6 years old for the rest of my life. I'm going to share with you kind of 4 things that I have learned, or I think I've learned, as I've gone through some of my experiences that really are foundational and a part of who I am as I go into this next 30 years of my life. And it's be unstuck, aim high, focus on your passions, and determine your role. And you've heard things like this all along, and I'm once again going to borrow. And my starting place is from a person, and a person writing about a person who I think really make this very clear. And it's Marvin Minsky writing about Richard Feynman. If you look at that first paragraph, and again, I'm borrowing a lot, is one of the troubles with trying to understand new things is that we all have preconceptions, and we're screwed up one way or another. When Feynman faced a problem, he was unusually good at going back to being like a child, ignoring what everyone else says, and saying, now, what have we have here? Feynman's genius, is moderately simple. Don't respond to peer pressure. Keep track of what the problem really is, less wishful thinking. Have a lot of ways of representing things. If one doesn't work, switch quickly to another. For me, this has become a mantra. I'll take you to a second one. And again, I'm going to borrow from 500 years ago. The greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but it's too low and we reach it. That's Michelangelo. At the time, the Pope had asked him to do the Sistine Chapel. So for me, aiming high was outside of myself, and I set it as I set the bar and then came back and said, how do I set it 40% higher and do it again? I have a set of skills that I have learned or think I've learned throughout my life. I'm not sure those were my passions. So I'm talking today to you about my passions. And it's the use of my skills and my experience to bring those passions alive. Very quickly, I'll share some of my passions that are in the public sector. Education, creative arts, science and society, leadership, exploration, and wow. There's a spectacular number of exciting people that are worth being around and can influence the world. A 4th point in my foundation, and I'm going to get to my story, which is going to take me there, is determine your role. As I mentioned, the 6 different people who are up here today, there are examples of other things that I've been fortunate to be a part of, and you have a role in those things. If they're the ones that are on stage in the star, someone has to set the lights, someone has to sell the tickets, someone has to get them in the theater, and this is a team event. Innovation requires a team. Every team has many roles. Every organization has many roles, and every great idea must address many issues. These are all hard-learned experiences of mine that I guess today I'm sharing with you. And every solo world first had a team. Innovation is the offensive team. My role, I think, is to be unstuck, to leverage ideas, and to play to win, make it a positive as we go along. So now let me get to the story that started this. 20 years ago, as parents, my wife and I went into a 6th grade review And the teacher sat down with us and very simply said to us, "You have a wonderful, sweet son, and we don't believe he'll ever graduate from high school." Boom. That's a problem. It's an emotional problem, it's a logical problem, it's any way you want to look at it, it's a big problem. Our journey, and I'm going to go through it very quickly, was to ask, have you had him tested? No, they hadn't. We said, would you mind if we have him tested? Absolutely. There's no facilities in the town that we're in to have that, so we took him somewhere else. So we tested him, we retested him, came back with the results. They said, this is great, but we have no facilities in the school to be able to help your son. This was the start of us learning about something called learning differences, learning disabilities, wiring systems, whatever you want to call it. A 20-year journey for us. 3 days later, I woke up at 5 in the morning. I woke my wife up and said, I'm going to sell the company and we're going to move. You find what city has great resources to help our son, and I'll either buy a company there or go to work for someone, because we can't go through all our lives with this pain. And we did move. We moved, went to private schools. They in turn said, doing great, we're 4 degrees off, think he needs to be at a specific boarding school. That happened to be St. George's in Newport, Rhode Island, because they have some understanding of facilities that could be helpful to our son. So he went there. They in turn did a great job, and they said we're 3 degrees away from really getting it right, because this is all about your wiring system. They said, there's a doctor down in North Carolina that we think is far ahead of anybody else that we know, except you can't get in to see him. It's an 18-month waiting list. I give my wife at that time the greatest credit, who called every single day, and in month 3, they had an opening. We went down to see a man by the name of Dr. Mel Levine. It was an absolutely eye-opening experience, and I'm telling you this personally with emotion, but there's an outcome. Turned my son's life around from, in the 6th grade, being told by the teachers through us, and probably directly to him, that he wouldn't graduate through high school, to a person that set him up in the wiring system to be able to be successful. The aha for me was not only what we saw in that experience, and what my son then started to do, which was very positive. And by the way, this son went on to Colby College, made Dean's List 2 years in a row, and now is a consultant for one of the major Big 5 consulting firms, being told 12 years before that he'd never graduate from high school. But the aha was that we were very fortunate. What I saw down there in Mel Levine's facility is this was a litany of some of the wealthiest families in the United States, every senator, every governor, and about only 300 of them a year. And one of the questions I got to ask at the end of this very long day, and I got to meet Mel Levine and spend some time with him, is we're fortunate, but how big is this problem? Because you really don't have a sense of it. We've been around the country, been tested a lot of places, but you still don't know. It's 22 million kids. 22 million. So we're fortunate. Here's a person with breakthrough abilities, and the question is, how do you get from that 300 to a number that could reach any number that's meaningful? That was an unstuck moment for me. At that time, we were living up north, went back home, and I called Mel Levine up the next day. And I said, I would like to come down and treat you and your wife to dinner. I'm going to speak from my heart. I don't know exactly what the plan will look like, but I know you've opened up a direction for my son, and I keep thinking of all the others out there that we don't have an answer for. Flew down to North Carolina and offered to take he and his wife out, because he likes good food, great food. I said, at the worst, you'll have a great dinner. We went out to dinner that night, and I don't know exactly what I said. I don't remember. It's a while ago, but it was certainly from the heart. And he turned to his wife. He said, you know, this man that came down here last week with his son, he's absolutely right. What do we do about that? In essence, what I was saying to him, you have breakthrough abilities. Is this replicable? Is it scalable? What are the issues here that we need to, could we talk about? This is a chair professor at the University of North Carolina, has a staff of 60, does whatever they want to do, And part of what I was asking him, and he surfaced that night, is you're asking me to step out of what I'm doing, and I'm very successful, and quote unquote, take a risk to possibly go out and do something different. A, do I want to do that? B, I don't know how to do that. So at the end of the meal, he said, you're absolutely right, but I don't know how to do that. I flew home that night, turned around and called him the next day, and I said to him, because it had been gnawing on me, and I'm sure all of you have had some kind of experience like this. I said, I cannot get you all pumped up with some emotion that I have about how good you are and leave you there. I will take 6 months off. Let's understand the market. Let's go to one of your wealthy parents of patients to help fund the first step in this thing, and let's build a business plan, whatever that's going to look like. I went to the skills that I had over 25 years and saw something here that might be helpful. We took 6 months off, built the business plan, went out and got the seed money, and the WIFM for Mel and the university and the kids had to be very clear. Here's the results. This year was the 10th anniversary of something called All Kinds of Minds. This was written up on the website over that, and actually I did not know about this until I went to the website and saw it. And Mel has been very generous to me in giving me some credit on that. But most important is the bottom. The results to date, we've raised $70 million, we've trained 28,000 teachers, we're reaching over 4 million kids a year. Bloomberg in New York has signed up for a 5-year program, and he will lead the country on this. Chicago is right behind him. The state of Oklahoma, Houston, North Carolina have signed up. There's something going on that's gone from those 300 kids that we were a part of 15 years ago to what could happen. What was that aha for me? One, there's many needs and opportunities, something just like this. To some degree, the 6 people that I'm very fortunate to be involved with who have come up here over the last couple of days. I also had to look at myself. What is my skill set? I'm a facilitator. Hopefully I'm unstuck. I'm curious, and I offer some kind of strategic doing. I had to line up my passions with my skills, i.e. you can't do everything for everybody, and we always tend to maybe either do that or none of it. There's the two extremes. And finally, what role might I have? And by the way, I didn't have words for that. When one of the 6 people who spoke on the first day here is the one who made up this sentence about me. He said, you're a champion to people like ourselves in getting there. I think more in terms of lighting the lights and taking the tickets, but champion is a supporter of those ideas. So that's been my role. So now let me take you to what I think, and I'm going to share with you, it's the first time I've really talked about it ever in public, is my next 30 years. And I want to be a champion of innovators. And I've made up a sentence that may not work, but it's where I'm coming from. How could you find 100 great minds with 100 brilliant ideas, have a possibly 100-year perspective, and you could maybe impact 100 million lives? The first step in that is we've got to leverage thought leadership, because they impact many. There's an easy lesson to learn from that. The second was you got to take an inventory of the assets or the resources of the friends that might help you on this journey. So I made this up just to show you, at this point in time, some of the friends that are in my life that you can turn to or not turn to. And it's not meant to show a bunch of brand names, but it's really meant to show the idea of how you can leverage this. The third, very important, is to start a conversation. There's absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, it's the opposite of asking, what's the next great idea for you from these kinds of people? Because they all have them. And the second part of that is to ask them, what's the next big chapter in your life? And that's the Mel Levine example, which is true for at least 1,000 of these people. For me, innovation is being curious, unstuck, and then I'm going to leave you with the other side. And that's a saying from another friend named Larry Wilson. If you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. And my final slide, I think, says it all. Thank you.